Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the angelic realm. I sit here today in front of you on December 2nd, 2025. Finally, we've come to a point of entering December. A lot of you may have noticed head pressure as I felt last night and the night before. The night before, I literally was screaming silently in bed around 1 a.m. Toronto time, just rolling around. I felt massive head pressure and I couldn't figure out why. Although subconsciously I had known that the sun activities were affecting me on an emotional level, on a level distortional to what my tranquility could hold within any moment in time within my physical body. And lo and behold, I open up Facebook where I get solar news from these groups that I've signed up for, and we had an X class X1.9 solar flare. Now, this is not the projected events of the massive outcome of the output within 30% of the energetic input of the sun's consciousness within its rays that it holds within the power scape that it tranquilizes into within the darkness and within the brightness of what is that is set to dawn onto humanity on a massive level. Within the next few hours, days, months, years in Earth time, we will begin to see a massive consciousness shift being led by the solar hem of an activity chart of a scope of a projection that is coming our way within short time, within no time, within all times, within this distortional field. This time is the most important time within a societal field, within the conglomeration of the wholeness of the aspects of what we are, to allow the sun into our field, to then be able to activate our consciousness to a point of oblivion, to a point, to a perspective of wholeness found, and emptiness never ever being able to subside into that in which we shall never ever not be within any moment in time. And as these word jumbles begin to direct itself towards your frequency within the overarching scope of all of the meanings that you've been able to sit through, the difficulties of being able to sit through this video, perhaps not, presents itself in this very moment in time. And as you wish, you can tap out. Had you not wanted to, you would have already not, and you would still be with me in this moment in time. So apologies ahead of time for the word jumbles that I'm about to spew out in this particular video of activations that is within the essence of all that you've ever been forevermore. Super duper, extremely, successfully true and untrue within your reality field of what is, in accordance with the activation systems within this quantum verse, that you shall be able to receive these activations within my word scopes of what is. Now, this activated scope within the quantum verse, within this bubbling system of my projection field within this video frequency of what is, may drive you into obliteration in the middle of the night as you come into the perception field of what that was all about. And had you wanted to stay to the very end, then I promise you the results are monumental to your field and how it will be able to open up into the distortional field within the sun's rays that is set to blast off within our quantum verse, within our consciousness, within Gaia's surface, upon her core, upon her energy body, within the next few seconds, days, years, in finality in Earth time that I speak of. As time is not a thing within the quantum verse at large, and time has never ever been a thing within a field other than humanity's field. And to speak of a time, to place a time limitation upon the sun's rays and when it will be directed upon our consciousness, is a delusional field in itself. Yet as I sit here in the beginning of December, I can tell you that we are very, very close. So close that within our bones, we feel the aching that something is off tilt, something is not right. You've been tired, I've been tired. Your brainscape and your brain scope has overarchingly been delinquently trying to send you signals in the middle of the nights. Your heart coherence has been triggered in the middle of the days. Your emotional aspects within the emotional scope of things hasn't been settled, hasn't felt settled in the longest of times, in the longest of years, in the longest of seconds leading up to the time of the solar flash, leading up to the cohesiveness within the coherence of you being able to come across this video and make it this far into my transmission. I know this may not make sense, as by the time you've come across my video, this grand solar storm of a ham within an overall chunk of the hamming system of our sun's frequency field would have already set off in long term, in short term, in long time, and in short time within this quantum burst. The brunt of the work would have already set off. The greatest and grandest awakening within consciousness to be able to push it towards where it needs to be within any moment in time. And yeah, as you come across this video, I'm speaking in past tense terms, I'm speaking in present terms, and within current terms of where you sit. As you sit in the future scope of things, as you've already began to open up your third eye chakra as a result of the solar flash that is about to still be incoming into Earth's field as we sit here December 2nd of 2025. Leading up to 2026, the times ahead are arduously steeped in distortional fields about to melt away and melt off of your energetic body as the decalcification of your pineal gland begins to calcify itself into the expansion process of the relinquishing of these microlingual, microscopic essences within the portional and aspects ratios of the surface of your pineal gland. That is another story to be told. And as I jumble on the words that I'm about to foretell to a whole entire humanity field that is so much so lost in the distortional field of what is, I sit in a limitation of a time aspect of limitations profound. As I need to go and meet my friend Jenna and her daughter Everly for dinner, as this may be the last time that I'm about to see them in this frequency field on Canada lands. It brings sadness to my heart as we are locating to Malaysia. We're following the heart chakra of the earth as she snaps herself back into alignment. Her chakra systems will undoubtedly begin to shift towards the northern aspect, the northern land of her coherency field within the upper tilted axis of her shifting north pole, of her shifting trajectory of the center scope within her core. There sits a distortional field so steep in the calcification of her very own pineal gland within her third eye chakra that you may or may not know of until the perspective of being able to listen in onto this video, until the perspective of being able to tap into my frequency field within this distortional field that I sit in. And as I begin the relinquishing of this energy into this bubbling field, just know that the chakra system that encompasses the entirety of you, I, all of humanity, sits within a funneling energetic frequency that is about to be pushed upwards in energetic scope into our root chakra, all the way up through all of our chakra systems, all the way up to our crown chakra, interlinking us into our sky chakra. And the beginning process of this is quite complex. Complexities in itself is a distortion field in itself. But had I been able to not be able to use the word complexity, I wouldn't be able to properly describe the situation scope that we've settled ourselves into within this quantum verse, within this solar range of a time, of a flash, of a dictated reality field that we sit in. As the sun splatters and begins to prepare to splatter parts and portions of its consciousness within Earth's atmosphere, the Earth will soak up all of the electromagnetic fields that it so daringly and so bravely pushes towards her in a magnetic frequency like never before being seen. As it draws itself closer into our field, it will find itself being sucked into the wind tunneling system that is our very own Gaia's third eye chakra. And as this happens, the wind tunneling systems will undoubtedly blow through her third eye chakra within the tunneling system of the coherent scope of her axis that she sits on, to be able to push it more northward onto an axis of tilting herself southward, away from our projected North Pole that we currently sit in at this very moment in time. The complexities of all of this is in an unknown aspect of consciousness itself, as I sit and try to describe to you the descriptive feat of the physicality of what is about to happen in Gaia's field and what is about to happen to us as a whole entire humanity as the axis of our planet is slowly but surely beginning to tilt northwards in a southward perspective, from a bottom-up topsy-turvy perspective, as the decalcification of her pineal gland begins to straighten out all of her chakra systems, as the incoming EMF field that is set to income into our planetary field of destruction will no longer be of a destructive nature to her. It will help her. It will alleviate the energetic frequency within herself to want to hold on to the calcification of the decalcification within her pineal gland. A story to be told in another video to come. But as she decalcifies and she works on releasing all of this energetic encompassments of the crystallization within her pineal gland, she will begin to release of something so inherently true that she's been holding on to for all of this time. And that is the interlinkage of the blueprints of Terra that has been overlaid onto her blueprint throughout eons and eons of evolutionary feats ever since the moment she dropped down into this dimensional frequency to become Gaia. A piece of her that is Terra will begin to slowly peel itself away from her blueprinted oversoul as the decalcification of her pineal gland in the axis of who and what she is, in the perspective, in the center point, neutrality point of the axis that tilts her northward into a southward skewing projective field to allow her fields within the axis point of Gaia's center point to tilt into an axis of northward and southward projected trajectories. And as she does so, mark my words, this energetic frequency will funnel through, all the way through, from one end to the other end, from her North Pole all the way down to her South Pole. And as her poles begin to shift, so will her chakra systems that will begin to come into alignment. And as her North Pole and South Pole begins to tilt on an axis that has ever so bearingly been around for millennia, since the beginning of the time that she's decided to descend down into her frequency field. Now, this axis that I speak of has tilted and skewed itself many times over and over and over again through the whole entirety of the lifetime that she's ever been able to encompass here in her experience field as Gaia herself. But this time, trajectory-wise will be a lot different than every other time that she's managed to reset all of the consciousness on her surface and within her core. This time, the consciousness that lives here will be predominantly preserved for all of humanity to sink into, to come into the realization of, to never ever forget. The remembrance of what is about to drop into our field is an epic distortional field to be collapsed at that. And as you clutch onto your pillows at night, as you clutch onto your Bibles at night, as you clutch onto your daughters and sons in the midst of the nights, as your grandparents clutch onto you in the middle of the nights, as your mother and father clutch onto each other in the middle of these coherent nights, just know that within your heart chakra, within your third eye chakra, within all of the chakra systems that you can ever decipher to be true and to be real, the earth itself is about to tilt northward towards a southward trajectory within the quantum verse. What does that mean? What does that mean for an entire humanity field? As I sit here and not so much use scientific language that you're so used to hearing as you question the distortional field that I could possibly be sitting in. As the words that I'm saying perhaps don't make sense in a scientific way, but as I sit and tell you the story of Gaia's access, just know that the story of creation happened far and wide beyond the scientific textbooks that we've crafted for ourselves within the past 20, 30 years of being, of consciousness itself, as consciousness itself holds no time limitations as to the types of knowledge and the distortional fields within the collapsing system of what is that could wash up the truths within a reality field of what the word access means in this perspective, in this coherence, in this reality field within Gaia's field as she tilts the northward trajectory of her axis down to the southward trajectory of her axis in this very moment in time as the sun's rays blasts its EMF energetic frequency into the sucking of this portal from the north end to suck it all the way down to the south end, all the while clearing, twisting, turning the middle point perspective of her consciousness back into a distortional field of a neutrality field within the brightness of what is, all the while pushing up the darkness that's been residing within this axis comfortably for all of this time, for all of humanity to witness. It will be a sight to be seen, to be heard, to be realized, to sink into as our distortional field begins to open up into a perception field of knots so grand in proportion that we won't be able to unknot it with our conscious mind as long as we seep our brainscape into the brain scope of things. And now this is where heart coherence must come into alignment with our third eye chakra. And as we do so, we will be able to pull in these memories, these downloads. My light workers, it is crucially important for you in this moment in time to tap out of your brain coherence and tap into your heart coherence. Your heart had been created as a linkage to interlink your energy, body, and frequency to the all that there has ever been within this quantum verse. Within the all that you've ever been within this quantum verse, you are it. You are all. You are all of consciousness that I could ever decipher, to speak to in words, to in the descriptive feat, to describe to you the meaning of it all within the interlinkage and the lineage of how we are all connected to Gaia on a frequency and energetic level within this quantum bubble that we reside in. The all that you are will begin to expand in moments of time within this distortional field of doubtfulness that is about to crumble to the ground of what is as Terra begins to relinquish and release of her blueprint within Gaia's field to allow this doubt energy to seep through these holes of distortional fields released and relinquished, to be able to allow this thick doubt energy to even lift off of our reality field is an accomplishment at that I can proudly sit here to declare to you to be true and to have already begun the process of the retraction within this doubtful energy that we hold as the most recent X-class solar flare that had not been directed earthward will begin to travel earthward as a practice scope, as a practice scape. And as Gaia sat 2 nights ago in a petrified state that she had been in the moment that my head began to tilt in ways that it had never been squeezed before, in the moment that I felt this energy press down on my cerebral temple, I just knew in that moment in time, and just know in that moment in time, Gaia herself had felt the very same energy, had felt the very same pain, had felt the very same type of coherence and incoherence on her energy body. And that is when I looked to my daughter beside me, told her to drink water, as she holds an activation point within Gaia's surface of being able to relinquish parts and pieces of Terra's field, to be able to allow this doubt energy to seep out above and beyond this field, to allow it to be released back, to be merged back into parts and pieces and portions of its oversoul that will eventually make its way back to source consciousness above and beyond the angelic realm as we begin the collapse of the greatest 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional frequency that has ever existed within our field, within our little quantum bubble. Exciting times are ahead, and I cannot wait for the results of this deception field to be collapsed in around itself. And by the time you come upon my video, this very exact video, and make it down to this point in perception in this video of 20 minutes and 50 seconds, just know that this would have already began, that the process of the elimination of the darkness within Gaia's field, of the decalcification of her pineal gland, of the decalcification of the entirety of humanity's pineal gland would have already taken hold. And as you come into the aspect of the memories and of the remembrance of what had just happened, as you began to slowly awaken into your destiny, in and out of your distortional field will pop off a significant portion of your pineal gland that had been the calcification within your reality field, holding you back from the connection within the heart coherence that you so much so deserve to sink back into within any moment in time. As you sink back into your heart coherence, just know that within this moment in time, you are whole, you are loved, you are tranquility through and through. And even as you don't feel like it, you are source, you are all. And even as you don't feel like it, even as you've never felt like it, in this moment in time, as you've come across my video, I would like to congratulate you as you've made it this far into this video. Making it this far into this video means many of things that I can never ever touch base on in just one video. But yet, as you've awakened into your destination, recognizing of the distortional field that you sit in, recognizing of all of the ways that you've been able to not make sense of this reality field, you will go and seek for answers. You will go and seek for the answers that your soul already holds within that heart chakra of yours. And within the alignment that you've dropped yourself down into, you've come into alignment. Then by coming into alignment with the messaging scope within this video, not all of you will agree with my words, but the ones who would have not agreed would have already shut the window, closed the door, buried these deep thoughts in their energy body to be tucked away and reopened once it is time for them to rewatch this video and come into a sinking realization of the energetic frequency that has ran over them in ways that they can never perceive to be true or real as they begin to awaken to their reality field of what is. And as the sun begins to get extremely bright behind me, it's beautiful. It's more beautiful than you could ever envision to be true just by looking at it, because I know for a fact my camera is not picking this up. It is as bright as it can ever be on a Tuesday afternoon. It's almost 4 o'clock. I almost have to go as dinner starts at 5. But I just feel so much peace wash over me in this moment in time, as I feel his rays glaze on my shoulder. And to be frankly with you guys, these rays have always served a purpose to our humanity, but that in which the purpose that it serves in this very moment in time leading up to the ascension has been twisted and skewed into a perception field at that, in your perception field. The true purpose that it will begin to sink into will open up to you, will meld into you through and through as you come into the realization that its consciousness had never ever not been you in your entirety of who and what you are. That Gaia's consciousness has never ever not been you in the entirety of who and what she is. It is. All is. That consciousness itself has never ever not been you in the entirety of who and what you are. And as Gaia's axis begins to tilt northward into a southward trajectory, just know that this EMF funneling within the waves, that the sun will project its protons, neurons, and galactons onto our spatial system within Gaia's field, within the rotational field of our quantum verse, within the rotational field of our galaxy, within the rotational field of our energetic frequency, that will relinquish itself into the flipping of our poles, into the beginning of the ending of the last frequency that we sat in, into the ending of the beginning of the first frequency that we descended down into the beginning of the ending of the final frequency our whole entire quantum verse will be able to experience, into the relinquishing of the beginning of the ending of the lower dimensional three layers of three realms within our frequency field, within Gaia's field, within our little frequency bubble, within our quantum verse bubble of the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional fields. Another video will be made about the 4-dimensional field and the ever so glistening creatures and aspects within consciousness that sits there. As the fairies and gnomes and lipids prepare for the grand collapse of our field, they are here to support us in every single way possible, as they will undoubtedly be able to shift their consciousness back into the entirety of the all, as we shift ourselves back into the 5-dimensional realm within the angelic realm frequency of the brightness of neutrality for once and for final, as we close the doors to the first 3 frequency fields within our dimensional field of the darkened portions within our consciousness, within the corridors of our reality field. This will be a story to be mesmerized by. As time is not a thing in the quantum verse at large, at best, I can tell you the deciphering within the facts of these frequencies have already began to shift back into an aspect of a neutrality field of an entirety of a whole. As time is not a thing within the quantum verse at large, I can tell you at best that within the different frequencies of the layering of our timelines, that the epic possibilities within these distortional fields of all that could ever transpire has already collapsed in on itself, on a wholeness level, on a singularity of a level, on all levels of distortional fields that you can ever fathom to be true and real within any moment in time. And as I sit here on December 2nd, 2025, just know that though you may come across this video in the midst of 2027, in the middle of 2026, near the end of 2026, no matter where you sit in your life, just know that you are whole, you are intrinsically whole. You've been drawn to this video for a good reason at that, and that is because you've begun the downloading of this information into your cortex, into your cortex, into your cerebral cortex, into your heart coherency, into your chakra system, into your energy body, as you expand all that it is, all that you are, out of the physicality of your cerebral cortex and what you've always been on a physical level, back into a spiritual being of wholeness. And as you begin to grapple with the air that you breathe, to come into a realization of the watering systems that funnel through Gaia, that breathes through the air and the life that she resides in and on within this frequency field, you must come into an understanding throughout subsequent projection fields that I've been able to relinquish and release into this perception field, that you are every ounce a part of this water, as God, source frequency, has ever been a part of this watering system that is so whole and so true and so pure. And as the Arcturian realm was created to reflect all of that within the watering system of Earth's frequency, to hold the dynamics and the energetic padding and the frequency within the opposition of the darkness that is here, within the brightened scope of what is, just know that the Arcturian layer within our frequency realm of the 13th, 14th, 12th, 10th dimensional frequency fields will begin to collapse in on itself within the Arcturian layer of our realm, as the Akashic records begin to descend into Earth scope, into Earth level, into your energy bodies. You will come into a memory of why and how the Arcturians even exist within our field, why the Arcturian realm was created to hold Earth's frequency on an oppositional level of what is, and how it had been imported into its locationary scope by source consciousness to alleviate the perplexing tipping of the darkness within our frequency field into collapsing into the brightness of what is, into a distortional field of the reflective concepts within our very own little quantum bubble. That will be another story to be told, and absolutely will be told. Within the tranquilizing scopes of all that you sit in, I will burst through in energy, in coherence, in memory of all that we've ever been. And as you soak up all of my messaging systems, you will be activated into ascending into higher levels of energy systems in which you sit in. Mark my words, by the end of 2027, mark my words, by the end of 2026, apologies, as I am getting quite tardy. It's getting really close to the time that I must leave. It's 4 o'clock. Mark my words, by the end of 2026, you will come into an encompassment of all that you've ever needed to or wanted to hold, in the knowing that the dropping down into this frequency will cause much difficulties in your field into the awakening process of the angelic light that you hold. This messaging scope is for the portion within the angelic light of the light workers that have ever been able to drop down into our frequency alongside myself. There is a portion and an aspect of us who are capable of holding angelic frequency, although while sitting here in the earth scope of things. As your energy system begins to funnel in this light, mark my words, by the end of 2026, you will come into the majority of the memories that you've been meaning to come into contact with, as you knew the difficulties of this mission, that this mission will entail, this mission will inhold, and perplexingly withholds in your field. Right now, as of December 2nd, only a portion of you, 2025, only a portion of you have been able to reach your consciousness into the depth of the momentum that I speak of. And that is quite okay. Within the loneliness of all that this reality field was ever meant to be built on upon, I'm used to that. I'm used to not feeling heard, not being understood, not wanting to or needing to come into a perception field of wanting to or needing to within the conglomerancy of all of this that has held so much weight in the truths and the densities within all the layers of the darkness leading up to the brightness, and sitting finally in the neutrality aspect of what is, to come into a contingency and a coherency of where I sit, of not needing to or wanting to feel heard in this moment in time, as I sit so patiently awaiting for the rest of humanity to open up their perception fields, to finally come into the memories of the memorizations within their coherency field of their energy body of what that could even mean, as they relinquish of the darkness within their root chakra, as Gaia is set to tilt her axis northward towards a southward trajectory. And as you will begin to see a massive climate portal up north begin to open up its breadths and its width towards the alleviation of the darkness within our reality fields, that will broadcast and shift all of the colder air and energetic frequencies hitting Earth southward within a northward projection of what is. We will begin to feel much heat dawning down onto our humanity fields. And that is because our poles are shifting. That is not because of what the government is telling you to be true or real. So watch out for these words that the elites have been able to form to deceive a whole entire humanity into believing that they need to watch their carbon emissions, as it's their fault that our atmosphere is fast shifting into a warmth never before predicted to be seen. And as our poles begin to shift, they will hide, they will skew, they will run, they will fault you like no other in circular motions into a moment of confusion that you will snap out of as you come into the realization of the divinity that you have forever, ever, archingly never not been. The times are ahead are an exciting time to be told for a whole humanity field meant to awaken into their destination, into their energy, into all that they've ever been able to encompass on a subconscious level of a consciousness distortion snapped back into the whole of what is. And as our family descends our way, makes our way into the Malaysian lands of what is, we will be undoubtedly chasing the heart chakra of Gaia as it begins to shift itself behind the northward projection of the Malaysian mountainscapes that resides upon this fault line that we haven't been able to figure out to be there, to be whole, to be a reality at that. There is a fault line sitting underneath the mountainscapes within the Malaysian regions that will begin to crack open and release of the toxicity within the darkness that used to sit within the heart chakra system within Gaia's fields. And as her heart chakra begins to move to alleviate the energetic pressure of this darkness, this fault line will begin to skew in ways that will allow the darkness upon her field to release itself once it merges into the Malaysian mountains of what is. The times ahead are a distortional one at that. And even as I speak of these fault lines, just know that you are safe. You are protected as a light worker who holds angelic light upon our field as the destination within the distortional field of Gaia that we are heading towards is so much so dominant and based upon your mission scape and mission scope of being able to survive past the non-tranquility field that will begin to rush up upon the Malaysian mountains of what is within the eastern hemisphere of what is, within the southern hemisphere of what is, within the northern hemisphere of what is, within the western hemisphere of what is. And as it dawns upon a whole entire humanity field, that World War IV will approach us in due time. Just come into a realization that you are safe and sound, no matter where you are. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of a 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional frequency of what is. And as I touch base on World War IV, you might be a bit confused as World War III hasn't happened yet, but the rapture itself that holds so true in all that within the biblical words of what is a representation of the final war that will take place upon our surface over the Israeli lands of what is. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I will definitely, forever archingly be back to remind you of the divinity that you are as we all tap into the rapture for all that it has ever been able to represent in our field. Goodbye for now.